What's going on, everyone? This is Daniel with DB Studios, and first I wanted to wish you all a happy New Year's. 2020 has been a very rough year for a lot of us. Some went through a lot of things financially, our relationship with people, health-wise. Other people may not have experienced so much, but nonetheless, 2020 has been a year that changed and redefined so many things in each and every one of our lives. For this reason, I actually wanted to come clean about something. I've actually been going through a really rough year, and perhaps in a much different way than how some people experienced 2020 with COVID and everything. But for me, it was really hard, and it really started at an early point in the year once all the lockdown began, and nothing has really been quite the same since. And my confession is that I've been really hiding it for the most part. I haven't really spoken to anyone, not my friends, barely any family members for that matter. And I've been just kind of dealing with it, shouldering it, and trying to deal with it myself. Since it's the beginning of a new year, I actually wanted to begin to, how can I say it, let it out, vent, I guess you could say, and really begin to come and talk about some of these situations that I've went through personally. And this could also be a way that some of us can begin to relate. And I think by talking about it and even relating to one another, we can begin to move forward or think of possible solutions to some of the things that we've went through or still are going through at this very moment. In this video, I'm going to start off with something a little bit broad because a lot of us went through it, and it's my experience graduating in 2020. What did I think about it? How was my graduation like? Be honest with all of you, it sucked. It really sucked. I could laugh about it now, and don't worry, I understand that as long as I've made it, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. But that's not what went through my mind in the moment when that happened. So this is what we're going to talk about in this video today. What was it like when I graduated architecture school in 2020 during COVID? Quick thing before I get into the video, if you haven't seen my last upload, which is It Looks a Lot Like Christmas, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, this is a really cool animation I did, which took 128 hours, 22 minutes, and 16 seconds to render. You heard that right. Over 5 days to render. So I will appreciate it if you take 3 minutes out of your time to go and check that out. But now getting into the video. So in order for me to really begin to break this down, I'm going to have to go and start from the beginning, when I started going to college. So going from high school of art and design, I knew I wanted to continue architecture in college. And although I got into like pretty good schools, for example, I got into the interior design program at FIT and a number of other schools, I really, for financial purposes, couldn't afford to go too crazy. So I ended up going to City College of New York, which actually, don't get me wrong, is a wonderful school. I loved City College. And in fact, I might actually do a separate video talking about my experience, or maybe a little series talking about my experience at City College at the architecture school, but that's gonna come at a later point. But going back to this, I had basically this whole plan laid out, right? You would hear people talk, people are already talking about graduation, and it's the first semester. I mean, it's not that it was bad, it was actually really fun, but then I guess a lot of us were really excited to just like get in the field. You know, all of us were like, oh, I'm gonna own my firm one day. Yeah. I'm not so sure about that anymore. Don't get me wrong, this is not about discouraging any of you from owning your own firm. And actually, this really doesn't have anything to do with COVID. There is a lot to consider when you go to that position, owning your firm. It's about knowing how to manage people. Architecture is the management of people, but I don't want to digress too much. That as well can also be a separate video. But the big idea was that a lot of us, we had plans, right? Some people wanted to graduate a year early in order to start, getting into the field and working early. Me, myself, I knew that I wanted to work hard and get all of my credits out of the way. By the way, for the architecture program, it's 5 years. You need 160 credits. Yes. Standard college 4-year education is 120 credits. So us, we needed 160 credits, which indicates you need at least 15 credits per semester. So really, I was grinding, right? I told myself that by the time I get to my last year, I want to be working in a firm. I don't want anything but the standard studio course. For those of you that don't know what I mean by studio, architecture, like of course most majors, we have a series of electives that we have to take that's mandatory for our major, but studio is like the main course where you're doing architecture. It's like your firm. I'm going to be saying studio quite a bit in this video. That's just so each of you who are maybe a non-architecture major can identify with what I'm saying. And with the architecture building, we had our own building, right? Like some other majors, and it was open 24/7. I'm telling you, we lived there, we worked there. Even if we had no studio, which is like a 5-hour class, 4 to 5 hours, we were always there working. You cannot get stuff done for studio if you're not working throughout the week. I mean, we did pull a lot of last minute procrastination, all-nighters / coffee runs / late night food runs. But you get the point. Basically, I started taking all these summer courses and taking like 18 credits a semester. I got all of my credits out the way. I only had studio left for my last semester. And this is, you know, the beginning of 2020. And guess what? I also landed a job. A good friend of mine, she recommended me to someone else who was trying to say, hey, do you want to work for this firm? And another one of my goals was, you see, with studio, we tend to have this thing at the end of the year, which is an end of the year show. And you display all the works of students who are about to graduate. And also a supplementary part of this is called super jury. So with super jury, you have all these architects from different firms, different schools coming around, and they're judging all the projects. So it's like one big competition. My goal was to really say, I'm gonna end this year big. I want to be proud of all the hard work I've done these last 5 years. I had all these goals, and then COVID came around. When COVID hit New York City, for us, you know, it was a little bit, I'm gonna be honest, like a dream. What do I mean by a dream? For the most part, for all of January, even up to most of February, we've seen a lot of cases for COVID in China and other places that are abroad, not in the US. So for us, I'm not gonna lie, I guess there was this attitude where we felt a little bit invincible, which clearly we weren't. We weren't prepared for it, even us as a student body. CUNY, I know like a lot of schools were beginning to shut down in New York when they found that one case. It was someone who I believe went to Iran and came back. CUNY was the last to shut down. And you know, many of us who were just kind of thinking this whole COVID thing was gonna be, you know, 1, 2, 3, and then we're gonna be back in school, you know, on time for graduation, all these things. And I guess you all know how that ends. What's kind of even scary is that we found out that, you know, one of the faculty members contracted the coronavirus at that time. And, you know, we found out really late. And so for that reason, school was going to be closed almost indefinitely until, you know, they had to like track down everyone who's in contact with this person, and you know, everything has to be clean. So the possibility of actually returning to school sooner began to dwindle. I feel like that's the point where a lot of us began to think, who were scheduled to graduate that year, well, what's gonna happen to our graduation? The more we thought about it, the more it became very depressing. The fact that we weren't getting any transparency from the school, but we can't blame them because everything was really uncertain, unsure. Quick story, you know, graduation for me, you know, in my family is so important. Literally when I was in first grade, and I can't forget this, we went to this brand new school near this place where we live. It was IS 66, yes, and it was like a elementary / intermediate junior high. Junior high school. Yeah, that's what you call it. And literally everything about that school was amazing. They had new basketball courts, tennis courts, this little track field or something, I don't know, new desks, new classroom, new cafeteria, cool friends, all that stuff. And my mom wanted us to change schools. And the reason why she wanted us to change schools was because there was an announcement made that this school won't have any graduation. We take graduation pretty seriously, and I've attended all my graduations from primary school up to, I can't say college, but up to high school. I went through all of my graduation ceremonies. It's a very big, very important thing. This is more so from the perspective of how it began to impact a lot of us, students, people who, we've spent a lot of time and we worked hard, and graduation is really that moment where, your loved ones see you on the stage and you're reflecting on everything that you've done, and you're like, it led up to this moment. I'm here because of my hard work. I'm here because I put in so much effort. I didn't give up. All the late nighters, all the exams. This is why I'm here, and this is like the reward for my hard work. And honestly, let me not pretend, like, I felt depressed and upset and so many things at the same time, because honestly, going back to what I said earlier about first year, I had a plan. I planned everything out. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. And sadly, everything was falling apart in just an instant. And to me, it felt like my hard work was not acknowledged, or it meant nothing, I should say. It's not even just from my perspective. I think for many of us, I actually want to begin to walk each of you through it. So, it started off, everything's going online. Architecture is a very, physical thing. Not just like model making and things like that, but you want to be next to your professor, next to your classmate. It's an environment where you learn from one another by seeing what everyone is doing, talking to one another. It's a very social space. Even though you can have your own privacy, you have your own desk to work, your own lockers, things like that. The real issue was that now we had to reformat everything. Everything had to be digital, right? Everything has to be on the screen, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it began to help us to be more conscious with how we present. We had to rethink everything, every little line weight, every little text on the screen. It has to be legible now. What might have been legible on the wall might not be too legible on the screen, or what might be too big on the right size on the wall might be too big on the screen. So there was a lot for us to reconsider, and we really had to work hard. But on top of that, there was sort of this, I guess, like this really something like a lag between everything switching online to, from how it was before. And really, for many of us, we felt lazy. I know of myself, I was working hard. I was grinding. Like the first 2 phases of our project for studio, I was working hard. I was grinding. I know many of you can relate in regards to some of your majors, some of your classes. Perhaps it's divided into like different term papers, things like that. I was working hard. I was grinding. I was pulling all-nighters. But when that happened, they canceled classes for a week. And then we're just like, what now? We were working on our project, but because it was a little bit more like, wait guys, we have to rewrite the syllabus a little bit, because a lot of our things had to do with in-person presentation. So because of that, our workflow changed quite a bit, and it's like we lagged, and it's not really anyone's fault, if I'm being honest, because for the most part, it was something brand new. None of us have dealt with this before. We can't blame the school. You can't blame this person. You can't blame that person. Sometimes we want to react in the best way, but is it the best way? Perhaps not. Perhaps, we learned from our mistake, and this was a huge experience for us, a big learning curve. So, with us, we had to now present everything online. And it felt less tangible. and less tangible in the sense that you see everything on the screen, but does everyone really understand what you're trying to say? There were times where I felt like a little bit defeated. I felt it was just like harder to think of ideas because, you know, sometimes when you with your professor, you could sketch ideas and show it to your professor and all these things, and you had like that contact with people. You know, a lot of friends that I had that I confided in or spoke to, I was seeing them a lot less. And you know, as this progressed further, it became more about this idea of isolation. For the most part, everyone had to like deal with on their own. You know, no one was inviting friends to their house. No one was really meeting up to hang out. Like I didn't hang out with anyone until like maybe July, like the first phases in city reopening. Like I think we went biking because that was like the safest thing to do, but I didn't see any friends for a long time. I remember even speaking to someone about this. You know, human beings, we weren't really designed in such a way to not have physical relationships. That artificial relationship we have by texting, or the feeling of all the dopamine being released into our bodies when we get a like or a comment on the post, is really artificial, if I'm being honest. That face-to-face human contact, human touch, you know, hugging someone, just talking to someone, nothing can quite compare. Texting, you know, I guess like video call is like the closest thing, but still, that's not the person. It's an image of the person, you know, a projection of the person. So a lot of us was lacking that, and architecture school is really something where when you are pulling all-nighter, you are getting stressed, you are having all these things, just hanging out with your friends, you know, taking a break, you know, going to get food with your friends, you know, going to the gym. That was something that was really, you know, important for many of us, and myself included. And having that taken away in just an instant, it was really, it was a little tricky to adjust to. You know, for me, I continued the home workouts, you know, that I kept it going for like another 2.5 months, but then I started to, you know, pull more all-nighters. I started to get like out of it a little bit, and eventually it really slowed down. I did continue for a bit after that, of course, but it wasn't as intense or as frequent as it was before. Everything was gone, and at the same time, even my job, I was furloughed, and that's actually what part 2 is going to be about. So for me, I lost my whole plan. I worked on it for years, and everything went down the drain. So that, it really sucked. But it's not just that everything went down the drain, it's I didn't feel like they recognized us. I didn't feel like they cared about us. And even looking at my school, they had like this graduation and it felt so artificial. I mean, no pun intended, it was artificial. It didn't feel like any of the students was recognized, anyone was cared about, much less to say we didn't have the end of the year show where all of our works were shown to all the families coming in. You know, I was looking forward to meeting some of my friends' parents, things like that. None of those things happened, of course, and it was something that was really hard for me to take in, because I'm telling you, this was like a 5-year plan. Literally a 5-year plan, and it worked, but then it didn't work at the same time. Honestly, going back to the graduation, it felt artificial in the sense that you see like a card popped in on the screen showing each person. I actually personally missed the email that told us to fill out the card, so I wasn't even part of it. And there was like 2 parts to our graduation, one within the architecture school, one within the bigger school, and I never saw that. And it's like your name appears on the screen for like a second, and I'm like, what is this? You know, it sucks, you know, and all that hard work happened just for me to like pass by in a second. You know, you wouldn't even bat your eye to look and say, oh, I wonder where Daniel is, or you wouldn't be able to see my face and say, I know this kid. This was the dude who was always in architecture school, always in studio late, all this stuff. It's like everything was taken away, and honestly, it was hard to really deal with. I know there was a lot more tragedies happening at the same time, but, you know, honestly, we shouldn't undermine things. You know, what one person goes through that may be hard for that person may not necessarily be easy for someone else, or it might be easy for one person and hard for another person. We all go through what we're able to handle, I should say. Even after graduating, it's like nothing was guaranteed, you know. Some people, you know, our plans was to work, you know, get started on working on the ARE immediately, but that wasn't even an option. There was no jobs available. And even though the economy before, you know, there was a lot of jobs available, especially for the architectural field, there was absolutely nothing. In a matter of months, nothing. So it was really hard, especially for our generation. And even thinking back to something my friend said, I remember I was wondering, what if I did graduate early? Maybe I could have graduated in 2019, a year early, finished the 5-year program in 4 years, and maybe I would have had a graduation. I would have had that feeling walking down, you know? But you know something, it's unique. We all gone through something in 2020, and graduating in of itself it feels like an accomplishment. At the same time, it doesn't. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm undermining it, but literally in my school, we had the choice of whether we just wanted a grade, like a letter grade for our transcript, or if we wanted to just get a pass or fail. You went through such a hard time, we're just going to pass you, you know, just because of that. You know, the grading became easier, all these things, which I understand why, but it's like, you know, it was just that feeling, you know. I really wanted everything to be earned. I wanted to earn all these things, you know. I wanted to feel like me walking on the stage meant something, even though, you know, it never happened. I know like some schools actually figured out how to do a graduation, but you know, it took away a lot. And it really shows how even your most detailed, well thought out plan could fall apart in literally seconds. Sadness is just really an understatement. Yeah, it's like our year is just, it's like in the history books, but not for the right reasons, if that makes sense. We're not going to be remembered for working hard. We're not going to be remembered for our contributions to the school, anything that we've done. But what we're going to be remembered as is the group that graduated online, which sucks a lot. So with that said, the year of 2020, the class of 2020, I should say, and I know some of what I said will vary depending on your major. Some majors are more about writing, some are more about being in the lab. Some of you weren't in your labs, you know, and that must have been weird. You had to write lab reports without physically being in the lab, and all these things is just so stressful. To add on top of the fact that, you know, the paranoia and the stress over, you know, the coronavirus itself. So, and I didn't even talk about that. So you can just begin to just imagine how sad it was, you know, and it didn't feel rewarding. You know, I'm going to be honest, an online ceremony, if it was an online ceremony done right, at least if the ceremony was good, but it wasn't. The ceremony from my school was literally celebrating the faculty. If you told me that was a faculty graduation, I would say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Where were the students in that graduation? All that hard work for nothing, and no work available. It really became my goal when New York began to open again, to try to see some friends, try to be physically active, do great things, to really begin to take my mind off it. And you know, a lot of my friends would tell me, listen, Daniel, you made it. That's what it's about. You made it. You know, don't be sad that you didn't walk, all this stuff, but it means different things to people, you know. Not to, some of you may have said, oh, I don't care, as long as I graduate, I got my degree, I'm out of here. Some people just wanted it to end. Other people were really more on the lines like, I wanted to see the fruits of my hard work. And you can say, yeah, the fruit of your hard work is getting the diploma. It's tough to really produce the same level of work during this time. And I don't know if I'm vocalizing myself properly, but it's really, I guess you could say we're stuck in this sort of limbo where you really want to work hard. You really want to see the reflection of your hard work, but at the same time, you have to understand that's just the situation. So what a time to graduate, and what a way to be remembered for everything we've done. We're just remembered as the online graduating class, and it sucks. So really talking about this, I really wanted to, you know, get that across that a lot of people suffered, and it was really hard by no stretch of the imagination. It was really tough. I mean, I don't know how each of you took it if you graduated in 2020. But one thing I wanted to really leave you with is eventually at the end of the day, whether or not you walked on the stage, whether or not you actually felt like your work was acknowledged, whether or not you did all those things, still, I have to say that you made it at the end of the day. Got your diploma, you got your degree. Some people don't make it all the way through the end, you know, even without the coronavirus. And it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. And I don't want to make it seem like, you know, because of Corona, just everyone was giving out free degrees. That's not necessarily the case. But I really wanted to say that it's not any of your fault. Because I think the idea why a lot of people do end up feeling bad is because, yes, they graduated, but then boom, no jobs, right? Yes, they graduated, but no one really acknowledged their work or their hard work, I should say. This is a situation beyond any of our control. Do not feel guilty about it. You still got your degree, you still have everything. And once everything gets back on track, I'm sure each and every one of you will find jobs. I know everyone who graduated this year worked really hard, and you all done your best because you're not sure what direction to go. You're not sure what is the right or wrong move, but you've all made it. I guess you can say we've made the right choice. It is something to really say also at the same time, hey, you graduated during a pandemic. Not many people can say that they've graduated and got their degree during a pandemic. And what matters now is just the mindset you have going forward from that. That's really my story, graduating during COVID. Honestly, believe it or not, this is so condensed. I really tried my best not to go into too many tangents, but I felt like there were so many little parts that I could have also added to this. But this is really my goal here is to establish some sort of commonality, because I know a lot of people went through hard stuff, and you know, begin to let these things out. So tell me, did you graduate in the year 2020 as well? Or what was school like for you when you're in 2020? Or work like if you're a professional? Please let me know and share your stories in the comment section below. I'll be happy to read each and every one of it. And honestly, I want to say this to everyone. Congratulations, you've made it. And I hope to see you all in the next video.